Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Fact Sheet live on eTV every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Here, we say it as it is, without mincing words, and it's all about the facts. After all, we all know facts are sacred. And so if it's not a fact, we don't discuss them. My name is Samuel Chen, and I welcome you to tonight's discussion. Tonight's discussion is about you, it's about me, and it's about Ghana. From the perspective of a senior politician, a seasoned one for that matter, someone who has been a leading advocate when it comes to our democracy in this country. He's a sports enthusiast. He's been the president of the Ghana Football Association, and he's a statesman. Tonight, my guest on the show is Dr. Nyaho-Tamakloe, and we're discussing Ghana. Good evening, Doc, and welcome to the show.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How about you, sir?
I'm fine.
All right. So we joined you in the house to have a conversation about Ghana, your pedigree being a politician. I'm sure you've observed a lot of things. We'll start with how you see the performance of this administration so far, 4 years on and presently, when the people of Ghana gave them the mandate. How do you assess them, the NPP administration?
It will be a bit difficult to really pinpoint on what they have done well and what they have not. Because we have a lot of difficulties and challenges facing us as a nation. Now, I would rather like to take it from this angle. That is now 64 years since we became independent. 64 years. Where have we gone wrong? Because I take a country like India. India, the difference between us and India in terms of independence was just 10 years. And where India has reached in technology and science, we are nowhere near. Nowhere near. So where did we go wrong? That's the first question. Have we been failed by our intellectuals? Have we been failed by our politicians? And if so, how do we get ourselves back on track and be able to be seen in the world as the first African country to become independent south of the Sahara?
Where do you place the problem? You've mentioned politicians, you've mentioned other people. Where do you place the problem?
The problem really, you see, let's get back a bit. I was then a very young teenager in the time of Nkrumah. I think planning has been our main problem. Bad planning. Because Nkrumah planned and he carefully followed what he planned. For a young nation then, to have no medical school, for a young nation then, to have no engineering school, for a young nation then, to have no law school. These are all institutions that were established by Nkrumah. And he had a program. He knew what he was doing. Now, where he felt it was important to send students outside the country, he did that. Having established these various institutions that I've mentioned earlier on. Now, rather unfortunately, what he wanted to achieve, he couldn't. He couldn't simply because his rule was truncated. I don't care about what reasons are given. Now let's take the Chinese. Recently, China. It's quite recent. I was in school with Chinese in Europe. Nobody took them serious. Now look at where they are today. So I think planning is our main problem. Now, of course, leadership. A leader without a vision, It's just a waste of time for a nation. Absolutely waste of time. And unfortunately, this is my personal view. After Kwame Nkrumah, I personally don't believe we have any leader with a vision. If we have had, this will not be the way.
So you think former President Kufuor, for instance, didn't have...
I say any leader. Don't single out people to me. I say any leader. We haven't had any leader. I mean, it's clear to see. The founder of the nation had a program, and he made sure he followed the program carefully. That's Nkrumah.
But you were an integral part of the NPP. In fact, you were with former President Kufuor. And so if we are talking about leadership, it is not an individual affair. It is about a team making it happen.
Now listen to me carefully. My interest, as far as this nation is concerned now, is about the next generation. I don't care about this present generation. The next generation. And it is important we look at the next generation more than the next election. So far, we have been looking at the next elections all along. And if we are not careful, that even might be truncated.
How do you mean by that? That even might be truncated? How do you mean?
You think about it.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around it, but I
look at what is happening. So-called hash what?
The Fix the Country Now hashtag.
Absolutely. So at times, many of you don't really look at the past. I don't blame you. Because you should have been taught exactly what had happened years ago. We had a similar situation during the time of Kutu Achampong. He took things for granted. In fact, I was a part of a group of soldiers who had wanted to take him out of power. Kutu Achampong. We were caught and were sent to detention. It was after his removal that I had my freedom. All these things were signs during our campus time. If he had listened, then it wouldn't have been what we went through. And what we went through is still reflecting on the whole nation.
I'll take you back to the issue about leadership that you raised and there being visionless in terms of those who have led this country. And I'm back to you again because you are the one making this pronouncement. And I'm saying that you were in the circle of the former President Kufuor. This generation that you're not thinking about, but the next generation you are thinking about, our generation is the generation then that administration should have been thinking about. And so you had influence. Why didn't we see that change?
Yes, you are right. I'm a founding member of the new Patriotic Party. When it gets to a certain position or situation, that you decide not to talk again. I've been talking a lot. I know Akufo-Addo very, very well. I've been in the trenches with Kufuor for years. They all know it. You follow me? But when I noticed that the leadership of the party is not following the tenets of our own program, that's democracy or development in freedom, then I said, no, let me take a second look. And what did happen? It was just a simple thing. We had an election. That's a national election of the party in Tamale. It was fiercely contested. And Paul Afogo was elected as the chairman of the party. So was Kwabena Ajipon. And Sami Krab as the second national vice chairman. Then out of the blue, nobody knew exactly what happened till today. What we heard was suspension of the national chairman of the party, who was elected. He wasn't appointed by anybody, elected. Followed by the general secretary and then Sammy Crab, second national vice chairman. Now, what is surprising was that when I questioned that, I was equally put on the ice. Now you ask yourself, is that democracy? But if you follow events carefully since then until this government came to power, that democratic principles have been eroding gradually. And it will continue like that.
There's a very important question I need to ask you. Is Ghana a nation that should go on the path of democracy? Is democracy good for us?
Democracy is good for each nation, but it must be practiced by somebody who believed in it. It's not a question of just talking. You understand me? Quite recently, we saw what happened in the US. Trump, he believed he was a Democrat. You follow me? Yeah. He lost an election and he wanted to say no. In fact, he nearly created a huge confusion in the US. We all saw it. US itself, the citadel of democracy. So you can know straight that we have Democrats who talk democracy, but they don't preach democracy. You follow me?
Yeah, I get the point.
And I think I will cite few examples. I will say I work with Kufuor, and he's a listening president. I'm telling you, he's a listening president.
Would you say same of President Akufo-Addo?
No.
Why not?
No. If he were a listening president, some of these things happening now will not happen. I was just listening to your social media this morning, just before you came in, where I saw a video and I was disturbed. Now, it came as a news flash, where two Chinese nationals were attacking a Ghanaian minister. They claim they gave the minister a bribe for what I don't know. He has not been able to fulfill his promise. Is there physical? I just saw it. There have been series of infractions during the time of my good old friend Akufo-Addo. What has he done about it? A man I believe he was a Democrat. A man I supported from the bottom of my heart. But I don't see him as a Democrat. At least, not my understanding.
So how do you see him? If you don't see him as a Democrat, how do you see
I say I don't see him as a Democrat.
But how do you see him?
Don't ask me how do I see him. Either you are a Democrat or you are a non-Democrat. Period.
I'm sure my viewers who are watching us would be interested to know, if you are not a Democrat, if you are not an autocrat, if you are not a despot, all these are options. At least Ghanaians must know coming from you.
That is why I say you are either a Democrat or a non-Democrat. The series of other events that you mentioned, positions that you mentioned, will be fitted in a despot or whatever it is.
Let me take you to the point you made about the truncation of our democracy and the Fix the Country Now protests, which didn't happen. What do you make of it all? That the youth took the challenge?
No one should think the youth is being irrational. No one, any sensible person will not take what is happening for granted. I will not. Rather, they should be engaged seriously to see how things can be sorted out. Well, if you keep on pushing the cock under the water, one day it will come out. No sane government will take what is happening for granted. And don't think you can use the security services. Oh, I've seen it before. I have seen it before. The removal of the SMC2 by Jerry John Rawlings. If you have been around then, will let you know that the security services are always on behalf of the populace. No government should ever think or dream that in the worst of situations, the security services will be on their side. They will just shift like that. I'm speaking from experience.
The point about engagement, we have seen and read a statement from the information minister to the effect that the conveners or organizers of this Fix the Country Now protest have met with the Minister for National Security, the Defense Minister, Minister of Interior, the Finance Minister. Should that suffice if you talk about engagement?
That is a good approach. If what you are saying is true, that is a good approach. But they should go further. They should not try to threaten these young men because they are not irrational. You follow me? Most of them are graduates from the universities. And what happened years back, we shouldn't think cannot happen now.
On the issue of threats, by the security agencies, I don't know if it's come to your attention that
Threat by the security agencies?
Yes, that these protesters or conveners have alleged that the national security tried to tap their phones or clone their phones. I don't know if you're aware of this. If you are, well, it's information. This morning I spoke to them on my show, and they made the case that they left that meeting with the top hierarchy of government, and by the time they go to the house, they realize their phones had been cloned. A phone had been cloned, and that they were being listened to. What do you make of such a move?
You know what I'll tell you? And I'll say that from experience. I will advise this government to contact Francis Poku to help them in their security setup. That's all. You know who Francis Poku was?
The same national security.
Oh, yes.
But
Oh, yes. I say that's why I say, because I'm talking on his record, his past record.
We are talking on his
You
record.
follow me?
Yeah.
Right down from years back. I said they should approach him so that he advises them at least. Well, it tells you what is happening in the security setup is not the way it should go.
The same Francis Poku that during Kufuor's era, his house was besieged and he had to take Kwesi Pratt and Co.
That is a different
go
story.
to his rescue.
That is a different story. But you don't know why his house was besieged.
Do you know why?
I'm not going to tell you that. Never try even thinking of pressing me to tell you that.
But
I know, but I won't not tell you that.
Okay.
There are people who should be responsible for such statements to come out.
But do you think in that instance?
I brought Francis Poku in because the security services, when it is in hands of experienced people, and there is sanity in it, there's always peace.
Are you by any stretch of imagination suggesting the national security, those handling our national security are not that experienced?
I've not said so. All I said, I would advise the government to get in touch with Francis Poku, even if he's still around. I don't know where he is now.
But do you believe those handling our national, do you believe in
listen
those handling our national security?
Security work, like it is in the US and other places. There have been people who have been in FBI for years, CIA for years. When you are confronted with a situation or challenges that you cannot handle, you always tap their knowledge. That's all that I'm saying. Don't try to bring in the question of who is better or who is different. That's not what I'm talking about.
Now, back to these youth who have, risen up to the occasion and the responses that has come from government. I've seen the Vice President issue about 70 reasons why he believes they don't have a case because they are fixing the problems. The Finance Minister yesterday also held a press conference also telling why these youth don't have a case. What do you make of that?
That's why I told you from the beginning that do not think they are irrational. If the Vice President has thought in that line, he wouldn't probably have come out because that was not necessary. So also was the finance minister. What are you telling them now? These are things happening live. They say we can't eat. We have no jobs. We've left school years now. So what you have to do is to look how you can fix the problems that they have raised. That's all.
But the reality, if you listen to the finance minister, is that COVID-19 struck us and the nation is now trying to recover from the impact of COVID-19. And so these expectations, obviously, will take time for them to be met. Is that not justifiable?
We are the only nation in the world that was struck by COVID-19. We are not the only nation. You see, that's when you come out with excuses, you worsen your position. When you come out with excuses, you worsen your position. That's why they should engage the young people. What they should have done, engage them, have a discussion with them. You follow me? Now, these excuses, these are our excuses. That will not satisfy these young men.
But are they not valid? I mean, if you call them excuses, I mean, COVID-19...
Look, I say we are not the only nation. We are not, even the U.S. was affected. The strongest capitalist nation in the world was affected. We have other countries in the sub-region. They were affected. So I don't believe any country, for that matter Ghana, will always use the COVID-19 as an excuse for the mess in the economy. That's all.
Let's stay on the economy a little bit longer.
I'm not an economist, so yes. Don't take me...
We're just having a general conversation. It's just a general conversation. Where another seasoned, statesman, let me put it that way, Mr. Sam Jonah, recently wrote a piece as a senior citizen expressing his views on current happenings in the country. And he's come under a barrage of attacks from, different people. What did you make of the things he highlighted in that piece?
No, Sam Jonah was just talking about what has happened or started happening in this country years back. But his emphasis was on present-day government. There's no doubt about that. And if I had been in government, I would not suggest that he's attacked at all. You listen to what he's saying, and then you find out areas that will probably, agree with you, and then you look for the solutions, and then that's how a government should behave. If someone attacks a government, just even by speech, and you try to attack the person, that government attacking the person, you always fail. You always fail.
One key element in that piece had to do with freedom of speech, and the fact that he writes and makes the case that there's a culture of silence in this country. Do you agree with him?
I do.
What are your points?
I do. Look, once again, let's get back to memory lane. When I was in detention during the time of Jerry John Rawlings, Professor Edubuaini had a meeting and he spoke openly. But that word culture of silence came to him or was attributed to him. And he was right. Edubuaini was right. And based on that, Edu trying to come to power, to be the president of this country at that time, was to make sure that the press is free and individuals move about freely in the free democratic setup. But we have now today. Yeah, we move about freely, but are we a democratic state where people cannot immediately listen to what the other person's views are, but rather they think they should kick against what other person is saying? That's not a democratic state.
But there's the proliferation of media. People are speaking, journalists write their pieces, journalists speak their mind on radio, on TV. So how then can there be silence?
You are a journalist.
Yeah.
Not quite long ago, I think a journalist from WhatsApp, I don't even know him, by rep, was interviewing somebody in public, I was told. And he was immediately rounded up and sent to detention. Whether he's freed now, I don't know. Is that democracy? You are a journalist. If it's done to you, like we are talking now, somebody comes into my house here and then bundles you away. Is that democracy? So no, look, that facade of having numerous newspapers around is rather also destroying democracy, because most of you journalists are the cause of the problems that we have.
Oh, really?
Oh yes. Well, you take monies from government. I know what I'm talking about. You take monies from government. And at the right time it will come out, because I don't think people don't know. And you write all sort of things in the press.
Is this not the right time, especially when, you know, the atmosphere is charged enough as a result of this?
No, the atmosphere is not charged yet. Don't make that mistake.
So
You follow me?
So I asked.
Yeah, now we have what you call earth tremors, but the quake itself will come.
So you say that you know journalists who are compromised, journalists who take money and...
Look, don't argue with me about that. Don't try to pinpoint me to such a... No, listen. I say journalists take money to influence their writing. And I know what I'm talking about.
But this is a general statement, which impugns my reputation as well, because I'm sitting right in front of you.
That's why I'm addressing you.
So, yes, but we always say that the only way to cure corruption in this country is to name and shame. But you are not naming
We
any.
have named and shamed people in this society, and nothing was done to them. Don't come to that angle at all. There have been instances where individuals have been exposed by an undercover journalist. What has been done to them? Don't tell me what you are telling me. I'm not here to just have a sort of, I'm here for serious business with you.
If you just join us, you're welcome. This is Fact Sheet live on eTV every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. We discuss issues of national interest. Here we don't mince words. We say it as it is. And the facts are all we discuss on this show. Tonight, my guest is Dr. Nyaho-Tamakloe, and we're speaking about a myriad of issues. I encourage you to stay with us even as we take this short break. When we come back, we'll continue with the conversation and touch on other aspects of our country. And you're welcome back. This is Fact Sheets live on eTV, also live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can join the conversation. Our handle is eTVGhana. Your comments, you can keep them coming through. We'll take the time to go through all of them, even as we have the conversation. For those who just joined the conversation, my guest this evening is Dr. Nyaho-Tamakloe, and we'll be speaking about a couple of issues. But now we come to issues still related to governance and still with the economy, though not the technical conversation, because just recently, per the budget which was read, some new taxes have been introduced and they've taken effect. Now, we are talking about taxes such as tax on betting, gaming, government introducing COVID-19 health levy of 1% on VAT flat rate scheme and 1% of national health insurance levy as part of the revenue measures to help the economy recover. Energy sector recovery levy of 20 pesos per litre on fuel, review of road tolls, sanitation and pollution levy, and financial sector cleanup levy. These are all new levies that the government has introduced. I know we've all heard about transport fares that are, going up, the effect on goods, the effect on food, and prices of commodity stock. Your take on the introduction of these new taxes? Elsewhere, reliefs were being given to citizens, but here we're being taxed.
Let me take you back to memory lane again. The U.S. revolted against the British And that got them their independence. With the policy, the English policy of taxation without representation. That's years ago. Americans got fed up with the British. Taxation without representation. Here we have taxation without amenities. You follow me? If I'm taxed and the money will be used properly, that's good for me. But if I'm taxed and the money will be stolen or be used on items that are not necessary in developing this country, then I'll be concerned. You follow me? And also, the more you tax the people, the heavier their burdens become. And this is quite simple. This should be understood by anybody. Where are the social amenities? Virtually none. Even the bus system is not operating. You know what I'm saying. Without the trotro services, most of the workers and the ordinary people will really suffer. Buses, if the buses are many, these taxation issues, particularly on transport, will not affect the working class. But the working class are suffering, and they will continue to suffer if such taxation policy that we have in Africa continues. That's what I'm saying. That we have to sit down and find out why we are at where we are now after 64 years of independence. It's unheard of. It's unheard of. You follow me? So there are basic things that must be tackled. Taxation will never solve our problems. Never. Because if we are not growing, now most of the monies that are collected are used in servicing debts that we have. Where is the progress coming from? I mean, these are simple things that if anybody at all should understand. There can't be any progress. A nation that will not develop its own resources will always be in the condition in which we are. Last time I was listening to Dr. Amwa, very brilliant exposition by Dr. Amwa. Very brilliant exposition. And for once, I think he is one economist I would say has come to say it as it is.
So you agree if he says that the Ghanaian economy is being run like a Ponzi scheme?
Absolutely, I agree with him. I agree with him. Not just this present one, even the past ones, past governments. Past government, the same operation. So what do you call it? Kofi Amwa said is 100% correct. And the advice he even gave government, I hope government might have probably listened to that program. Very interesting program.
So you referenced past government as well, and then you referenced current administration. Let's just jump to, let's say, 2015, 2016, when the NDC was in power. They would reference the community day senior high schools they were building. They would reference the hospitals they were building or they had built. They would reference even the controversial Saglemi project. They would reference the expansion in the water system, the introduction of the desalination plant. They would reference all of these things. These are loans that were used to build these things. And so if we are servicing them, what's the problem with it?
You see, these are loans that we take to see to these things. Yes, that is correct. It's the same thing Kwame Nkrumah was doing. He built the Township plus a harbor. He built a medical school from the scratch. He built a Ghana Law School. He built numerous hospitals. Indeed, this so-called SAH, free or whatever you call it, Nkrumah initiated it. And he made sure it worked. And one wonderful thing that man did was that, having created all these secondary schools in the various districts, he made sure that people from the north come down south to attend schools and vice versa. That's why during his era, no one even thought about where that particular person is coming from. We were all Ghanaians. It's not the same now. You see, people have to, you must be bold to say it as it is.
You think we are not being bold enough as journalists?
Oh, no, you are not at all. You are not at all. I've been listening to your programs. You are not at all. The way American journalists behave, you don't come close to it at all. They are bold. They don't care being sacked. I hear a Ghanaian journalist tell you that he's thinking about his own self first. That's why I say the problem facing us, if we are going to think about it, then we have to think about next generation, not the next election. The next election is, that is what all governments have been doing, thinking about the next election. And as I talk to you now, I know it's happening, the next election. And then they leave the main work and even divert resources to the next election. And this is why we are at a standstill as a nation.
So if we don't tax the people to get the money to develop the nation, we complain about our debt portfolio being too high, our debt to GDP we are concerned about. How then do we build a country?
You as an economist, I'm not an economist.
Yes, but from a layman's point of view,
A layman's point of view, you make sure when you take over power, you make the ordinary person comfortable. Social interventions, very important. So that the ordinary person will know that I am even a human being. But that's not happening. And you know what I'm saying is true.
Well, a key maybe supporter or a government communicator may tell you that when we were going through the hard times during the COVID-19, free water was given, free electricity was given, food was supplied to the deprived and vulnerable. All these were interventions that were provided by government. So what could Doc be saying?
Look, I never had free water here. Though government pronounce it. Indeed, as I talk to you now, my pipe has been empty for I don't know what period. I buy water. Do you understand me? And we all know that some of these things or some of these statements come out, but they are not true. Really? You are a citizen. You should know. Don't ask me really. You are a citizen of this country.
Well, I enjoyed free electricity.
Well, if you enjoy free electricity, then you enjoy free electricity.
But you didn't enjoy
what is
the
the
free
state of the
electricity as
power
well?
now? What is the state of our power now? Where people, just yesterday I had a call from Kumasi, somebody complaining that for 3 months now, he hasn't had a regular power supply.
How do you feel about a government which lashed the NDC administration at the time we're having a power crisis, 4 years on, and we're having power crisis? How do you feel about it?
The power crisis didn't start from the NDC. You see, when I was an ambassador, I remember very well, I had a phone call from a colleague of mine, and we were discussing the power issue. The power crisis didn't even start from Kufuor. During Kufuor era, it became quite clear that we have crisis. The power crisis started right down from the PNDC era, where the distribution of electricity supplies was almost extended to various parts of the country. That was a good objective. But they were not able to immediately start developing a new power base that can, So maybe they might have probably brushed it under the carpet, thinking that that might not happen. But it became very bad during Kufuor's era. And Kufuor worked on that, what he could. He did what he could. Then the NDC came, and it got worse. But they tried to manage it before they left power. And they handed it over to us. Nobody believed, I personally didn't believe that we shall have power crisis under NPP. But it's happening now. You follow me? The power can go off any time from now, as we are talking.
Have you chanced upon the timetable that kicks in today, 10th, load shedding?
No.
For us, you
No,
haven't
no,
chanced
I have
upon
not.
it.
I don't have time for that.
Well, but there is load shedding.
It tells you that we have a problem. That's the so-called doomsday or whatever you call it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And yet people came out to defend that situation. I mean, it surprises me. The thing is so practical, you can see it. But somebody will come to defend and say, no, this is not doomsday. Then what is this?
How do you feel when you hear these defenses being put up by government officials and spokespeople?
It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. You see, when you are in government and there's a problem or people start complaining about issues, it is your duty to carefully look and listen to what they are saying and find ways of solving that problem. Because the problems are there. If they are not there, they won't talk about it. You follow me? Now, this so-called hashtag fix the country. I mean, where you have over 400,000 people complaining, my God, you don't take it as a joke. Any sensible administration will not just sit down. You try to find out. And the worst thing is that if you try to think those people are politically influenced, that's the worst thing that any government will do.
So you don't agree with your party chairman that
No.
the NDC could be behind this?
Which party chairman?
Freddie Blay.
Fred Blay is not my party chairman. He is an alien to our tradition. In fact, his coming to that party has destroyed that party. I've said it time and again that I will never accept him as a chairman of our party.
But your executives delegates voted for him.
No. We know what happened. Look,
No, you might have, by proxy, you might have information.
look, whatever happened, that Freddie Blay became the chairman of our party, of the new Patriotic Party, I will never agree. I will never. I have never seen massive. I've said it time and again. You can go and check your records, you see. You follow me? Yeah. But where you have a character moving from one tradition to the other, just like that, then you ask yourself questions.
But is it normal for political parties, people to cross carpets, to join others?
Yeah, people cross carpet, but it depends also at the time and the individual. Freddie Blay has been a member of parliament for a particular party. What happened before he left them? He was closely associated with Lieutenant General Erskine's party. What happened? He should tell us those things. If you didn't think, we don't know. What happened before that particular connection with Erskine broke? You follow me?
What's your view of the current leadership of the party, current executives of the party? What's your view of them?
What I would say, I'm not going to judge anyone here. What I would say is that the party will definitely need a new leadership. Right down from chairman all the way down. You follow me? A new leadership that will follow the principles and objectives of the party. And I don't believe that is what is happening now. I don't believe.
That's interesting. But moving forward, back to the conversation we were having about the power sector. and the fact that, now load shedding is in. Again, its impact on a country which has already been hit by COVID-19. Now,
Which country are you talking about?
Ghana, of course. Now, there is power rationing or load shedding. How is this going to impact this same country that is seeking to get out of the doldrums, if I should put it that way?
You make me remember J.H. Mensah. When you are an economist, and I believe our president, the finance minister, is an economist. And I think an astute one, I'm told. That's why he was made a finance minister. And he has a team. Remember, earlier on I said we might have been also disappointed by our intellectuals. Now, if you have a finance minister with that degree or qualification, and you can solve basic problems of a developing country like Ghana, then he has no business being there. It's as simple as that.
But constantly we have heard His Excellency the President tout, the finance minister as the man who, has it all to make things happen.
That's what I'm saying, that we have had instances in this country where we think our intellectuals are so super. Let's come to even to engineering field. What have they been able to do for this developing nation for 64 years? I'm not pinpointing things on one individual. But that's why, as a nation, we have to sit down and think about it. I give an example of India. The difference between us, time-wise, is just 10 years. India produces fighter jets. Fighter jets. Where are we? Their medical setup is excellent. Where are we? Transport for the ordinary person. With all their huge population, very huge population, they have been able to cater for themselves. Malaysia, we all started together with them. Where are they now? Singapore, where are they now? So that's it. I mean, you see, the blueprint that Nkrumah had years ago, maybe somebody will have to go and look for it. And then we have a proper planning, or whatever you call it, planning committee or a setup. And then know that this is what we are doing. But if we don't do that and continue with this sort of, 4-year election that we are now so close to, we shall definitely forget the development of this country.
Is it for us to have a look at the tenure of a government, this 4-year cyclical thing you talk about, that we need to extend the tenure of a government, let's say to 7 years, so they can have ample time to develop, so they don't think too much about elections ahead of them?
No, I don't believe that. If we are not, if you do that, mind you, we are in Africa. You give a ruler 7 years, he or she will entrench himself. It's as simple as that. Even 4 years, look at what is happening. That any time we have elections, then there will be problems. But people want to entrench themselves. So I don't believe 7 years. If the leader is good and has vision, within 4 years, he should be able to do something that everyone will see.
Let me take you on the journey we are on now, which has to do with elections and how cyclical the problem has become. The recent elections, the 2020 elections, the NPP won the elections, but the NDC contested that in court with a petition. What did you make of the entire exercise and its outcome?
I think the voting went fairly well, no doubt about that. And where the problem came was the coalition. You follow me? And unfortunately, people lost their lives at some of the constituencies, you see. Now, I think this question of electoral commissioner should be looked at again. And we've had electoral commissioners before. There's no way they will listen to government. A person like Justice Aban, a person like VCRAC Crab. I mean, the government cannot come and tell them stories. Indeed, during a champion's time, we had a referendum. That was then in Oshafort, I remember. A referendum, a champion wanted to change the figures. And the electoral commissioner said, no way. The man had to run away and go and hide somewhere when they wanted to get hold of him. A champion error. You follow me? But if you are an electoral commissioner and that integrity is intact as far as you are concerned, then you don't have any problem.
You think the present EC chair hasn't got that cloud or integrity?
The commissioners we have lately, I would have preferred, listen to me, this is my own preference. I would have preferred we have people who have been jurists, sat on the bench for years. And that was what previous governments were doing. Most of them were to the level of Supreme Court judges. You follow me? But this sort of bringing young people to handle such sensitive subjects is a problem. It's a problem.
Were you satisfied with the work of Kojo Afarajan?
Afarajan, you see, I would say Afarajan case is a bit dicey, as far as I'm concerned. Now, Afarajan inherited, I think, from D.F. Annan, okay? D.F. is a jurist. He's a lawyer. I mean, a well-known lawyer. He's been on the bench for years. So he handled the whole thing beautifully. Then Afarajan took over. You see, Afarajan did his best. But I would say he listened more. And he was very open. Believe me, if it had been Afarajan that, and what do you call it, a political party would have demanded that he gives account of what had happened during the elections, Afarajan would do it. But here we have, what's the name? Mrs. Mensah, you know, afraid to account for his own work. I mean, it's ridiculous. The people are not asking for anything. They say, come and tell us how the figures were. And it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. You see, because where you have a situation where elections are held, you follow me, and then the populace demands that you should come and give us an account of what happened, either in figures or whatever it is, and you refuse to do that. You refuse.
All right, so we'll go for a breather. If you just join us, I'm here with Dr. Nyaho-Tamakloe. This is Fact Sheet live on eTV, live on Facebook as well. We'll be rounding up our discussion or conversation shortly. When we come back, one final question, and that should be it. Stay with us. This is Fact Sheet live on eTV. We're having a conversation with Dr. Nyaho-Tamakloe, a statesman, and we're picking his thoughts on issues regarding Ghana. Doc, my final question to you this evening would be about the fight against Galamsey. We have been told government has deployed some, I think, 600 soldiers and then some 200 police personnel as well to fight the menace of Galamsey. How do you see the effort?
Oh, firstly, let's look at those destroying our forest reserves. They are not Ghanaian citizens or nationals. They are Chinese. They have been there for years. Now, if my memory could set me right, there was one Chinese woman who was arrested. How did she get out of the country? You see, these are some of the problems we are facing. Now, if we really want to put a stop to this galamsey, then we have to behave as real patriots. Because who gives them the land? The chiefs. Are the chiefs now prepared? Like that Santini was saying, that you can't solve that problem without the chiefs, and I agree with him. I agree with him entirely. So, no matter the strength of the military that you put there, because the military cannot stay there indefinitely. So are the policemen. There's one thing that Jerry John Rawlings did when he came to power. They had a network which completely went to every corner of this country. That when there's something in the remotest village, a citizen will come out and say, this is what happened. Or even if there's a stranger, citizen will come and report. That's how Rawlings was able to survive for all these years. That network, if we can put it back in operation, it will help this nation. Because the police and the military you have there is just a temporary measure. So the what do you call it? The equipments that were being destroyed, I saw them on television. Some were being burned, and people came saying that it shouldn't be destroyed. I disagree. If you don't destroy the equipments, they will come back. They will come back if you don't destroy the equipments. So if we really, really want to solve that problem, then we have to go to the grassroots, where the people live. You explain to them. They know that their water is now bad. They see the destruction. Work with the grassroots and make sure you have very honest and genuine district commissioners or whatever you call them. And together with the chiefs, I believe that problem can be solved. So that's that.
Doc, we are grateful that you welcomed us into your beautiful home for this conversation. And on that note, we'll end tonight's edition of Fact Sheet. It's been a wonderful conversation with Dr. Nyaho-Tamakloe, a seasoned politician, a statesman for that matter, and he's touched on a myriad of issues. God willing, tomorrow morning, there'll be a replay of this conversation on eTV at 10 a.m.